You meet someone, your heart speeds up, your palms go damp, your brain quietly starts calculating something you are barely aware of. This reaction is not new, and it might be older than language itself. For most of human history, the question of who you loved and how looked nothing like a modern romance. Around 34,000 years ago, in what is now Russia, someone was buried with unusual care. Thousands of ivory beads, fox teeth, spears, carved from mammoth tusk. And in 2017, when scientists finally read the DNA hidden inside those bones, they found something startling. These people were not closely related to each other. Somebody, deep in the Ice Age, was already keeping careful track of who could pair up with whom. This is Sunghir, a burial site first studied in detail by paleoanthropologist Eric Trinkhaus, and later genetically analyzed by a team led by geneticist Martin Sikora, published in the journal Nature. What they found was not romance. It was structure. A network of small bands, deliberately trading partners across long distances, so no one had to pair up with a close cousin. Why does this matter? Because it tells you something most people get backwards about prehistoric sex. It was not chaos. It was not a free-for-all. Some of it, remarkably, looks like planning. So where did pairing up even start? One influential idea comes from anthropologist Owen Lovejoy in a 1981 paper published in the journal Science. Lovejoy argued that walking upright and pair bonding might be connected. His reasoning went like this. A male who consistently provisioned one female and her offspring, instead of competing loudly for many mates, would leave behind more surviving children. Over time, that quiet strategy could shape a whole species. It is a compelling idea, and it is also debated. Not every researcher agrees. The evidence does not support one single explanation for why humans pair up at all. Primatologist and anthropologist Sarah Blaffer Hrdy offers a different piece of the puzzle. In her book Mother Nature, she points out that human infants are unusually needy for an unusually long time. Raising a human child, she argues, likely required more than one committed adult. It required a whole support network. Grandmothers, aunts, older siblings, sometimes fathers who were not biological fathers at all. Researchers call this cooperative breeding. This is the detail that gets me every time. Long before dating apps, before marriage certificates, human children may have survived not because of one perfect pair bond, but because of an entire village quietly showing up. To understand where humans might sit on this spectrum, researchers often look at our closest living relatives. Primatologist Frans de Waal spent decades studying bonobos and famously described them as using sex, casually, to ease tension and smooth over conflict within the group. Chimpanzees, a close relative living just across the Congo River, behave very differently, with far more aggression and stricter dominance hierarchies around mating. Humans are not bonobos, and humans are not chimpanzees either. But the comparison matters, because it shows that even among our nearest relatives, there is no single default. Biology offers a range of possibilities. Culture and circumstance decide which ones actually get used. Now, you may have heard a very different story. A popular book called Sex at Dawn made a bold claim. It argued that ancient humans lived in a kind of promiscuous paradise, before agriculture supposedly ruined everything with jealousy and private property. It is a great story to tell at a party. Most researchers who actually study the skeletal and genetic record do not think the evidence holds up. The picture from sites like Sunghir does not look like chaos. It looks like people managing relationships carefully, across generations, sometimes across hundreds of kilometers. So was everyone strictly monogamous? Not exactly, and not everywhere. Anthropologist George Murdoch's Ethnographic Atlas, a survey of hundreds of documented societies, found that roughly 80% formally permitted a man to take more than one wife. That number sounds dramatic. Here is the part that usually gets left out. Within those same societies, most actual marriages were still one husband and one wife. Multiple wives took resources few families ever had. Permission and practice, it turns out, are two very different things. For a closer look at how flexible human pairing can be, anthropologist Marjorie Shostak spent years with the Juhoanzi people of the Kalahari, recording the life story of a woman named Nisa. It is important to be clear here. The Juhawansi are not a window into the Stone Age. They are a contemporary people living modern lives today, and their relevance is only as a useful comparison, never a time machine. Still, Nisa's story, as told to Shostak, described childhood betrothals, multiple relationships before and during marriage, and an approach to love that was pragmatic as much as passionate. There is no single ancestral template. There is a wide human range. You may have also heard something else. Parts of the Pacific were once described as a paradise of total sexual freedom, especially for teenagers. That idea traces largely back to anthropologist Margaret Mead, whose 1928 book, Coming of Age in Samoa, described relaxed adolescent sexuality with very little of the anxiety Western teenagers experience. It became one of the most famous claims in anthropology. Decades later, anthropologist Derek Freeman challenged Mead's conclusions directly, arguing she had been misled by informants and had overstated how carefree Samoan sexuality actually was. That debate is still not fully settled today. What is clear is this: a single dramatic claim about a sexually free culture should always be treated carefully, whether it comes from Samoa or from your own assumptions about the deep past. Sex, of course, had consequences your ancestors could not ignore. Evolutionary anthropologist Wenda Trevathan has spent much of her career studying what she calls the obstetric dilemma. Human babies are born with unusually large heads to fit unusually large brains. Human hips, meanwhile, are narrow, built for walking efficiently on two legs. Something had to give. Trevathan's research suggests this tight squeeze may be one reason humans, almost uniquely among primates, tend to seek help during childbirth. Not because ancient mothers were fragile, but because the anatomy of being smart and upright made birth genuinely, physically difficult. Assistance was not a luxury. It may have been a survival strategy built directly into the body. Here is a piece of ancient wiring you were probably carrying around without realizing it. In the late 1800s, Finnish sociologist Edvard Westermark proposed that people raised closely together from early childhood develop an automatic, unconscious aversion to pairing with one another, regardless of whether they are actually related. Decades later, sociologist Joseph Shepard tested this idea on Israeli kibbutzim, communities where unrelated children were raised together, like siblings. Across thousands of recorded marriages, virtually none occurred between children raised in the same peer group from birth. No rule forbade it. Nobody had to be told. The aversion simply appeared on its own, shaped by closeness in early life, rather than by biology alone. There is one more oddity worth sitting with. Compared to many other primates, human ovulation is remarkably hard to detect, even for the woman experiencing it. Chimpanzees advertise fertility with dramatic visible swelling. Humans mostly do not. Researchers Richard Alexander and Catherine Noonan, writing in the late 1970s, proposed what is sometimes called the paternity confidence hypothesis. The idea is that hiding the fertile window changed behavior. It may have encouraged males to stick around and invest in offspring year-round, rather than only during one brief, obvious window. Other researchers have proposed different explanations entirely, and nobody has definitively settled the question. Your body, it turns out, may be running a strategy so old and so subtle that even modern science has not fully cracked it. So let's reconstruct an evening tens of thousands of years ago, somewhere on the edge of a river valley. A fire is burning low. Someone is repairing a spear shaft by its light. Nearby, two teenagers are talking, a little too carefully and a little too often. An older woman watches from across the fire, saying nothing, but clearly noticing everything. In many documented traditional societies, elders played an active role in who paired with whom, not always as strict arrangers, but often as quiet gatekeepers, weighing alliances between families, available resources, and yes, whether two people actually seemed to like each other. Attraction mattered. It simply was not the only thing that mattered. Here's the twist that tends to surprise most people. The butterflies in your stomach, that rush of attraction, appears to be genuinely ancient and strikingly cross-cultural. Anthropologists have documented signs of romantic attraction in the overwhelming majority of societies ever studied. But historian Stephanie Kuntz, in her book Marriage: A History, draws a sharp distinction. Feeling romantic love is old. Marrying primarily for romantic love is not. For most of human history, in most places, marriage functioned closer to a business decision. It secured food, protection, land, and alliances between families. The idea that you should marry your one great love and nothing else is, historically speaking, a fairly recent invention. There is also a less romantic thread running through this history. Skeletal remains from various pre-modern populations show evidence of chronic infections, including treponemal disease, a family of bacterial infections related to what we now call syphilis. Researchers still debate exactly when and where these infections first appeared in humans, and how they moved between continents. What the bones do confirm is straightforward. Intimacy has always carried physical risk, right alongside its benefits, and ancient bodies had to negotiate that trade-off, long before anyone understood what bacteria even were. Even the smaller rituals of modern dating carry old fingerprints. In many documented societies, courtship involved a formal exchange of goods between families, sometimes called bride price or dowry, depending on which direction resources flowed. It was not only sentimental, it was a way of formalizing an alliance and signaling that a family could genuinely support a new household. The bouquet of flowers on a first date, or the effort behind a carefully planned proposal, echoes a very old logic. Show, do not just tell, that you are serious. Now here is where this gets a little strange, and honestly a little wonderful. In 1995, biologist Klaus Wedekind ran an experiment that has become famous among researchers, sometimes nicknamed the sweaty t-shirt study. Women were asked to smell t-shirts worn by different men and rate which scents they found most appealing. On average, women preferred the scent of men whose immune system genes, a set of markers called the MHC, were most different from their own. The likely reason, genetic diversity in future offspring, may mean stronger resistance to disease. In other words, part of what feels like pure chemistry on a first date may be your immune system quietly doing math it inherited from deep in your evolutionary past. So what does all of this actually tell you? Not that ancient humans were more chaste than you assumed, and not that they were wilder than you assumed either. The honest answer is messier and far more interesting. Pairing up, staying together, choosing who to trust with your body and your future was never simple. It involved biology you did not choose, and negotiation that you did. It involved elders, alliances, and a stubborn preference, wired deep into your senses, for partners genuinely different from yourself. Modern dating apps, awkward first dates, the nervous instinct to bring a partner home to meet your family, none of it is as new as it feels. You are running very old software, dressed up in a very new interface. You meet someone, your heart speeds up, your palms go damp, and somewhere, quietly, underneath all of it, roughly 300,000 years of trial and error are still running the numbers.